To survive in this world, you need two things: the will to survive and luck. Tons of it. Generally, everybody is lucky, seeing that there are 1001 ways to die. But there are some people who are both unlucky and tremendously lucky. We couldn't decide which, so we leave that to you. Today, we are going to be looking at these people who were able to survive freak accidents and live to tell the story. Ever heard of the guy living with just half a brain? You really do not want to miss that one. Stay tuned. Let's go. 10 people who survived the impossible. Brain Salak. Brain Salak has been dubbed the world's luckiest man and the world's unluckiest man by the media. Tell us which one you think he is after watching this video. This Serbian man escaped death 7 times and even won a lottery at the end, as if to place a cherry on the lucky cake. His travail started in January 1962, when the train he was riding went off the track and crashed into a river, killing 17 people. In 1963, he decided to try flying for a change, but was blown out a malfunctioning door and landed on a haystack. That plane crashed, killing 19. He never flew again. In 1966, the bus he was riding skidded and crashed into a river, killing 4 passengers. Selak walked. In 1970, his Get went up in flames while he was driving. Guess who managed to escape before it flew up? 3 years later, his fuel pump malfunctioned, sending flames and hot oil through the air vents. Selak came out bald, but unharmed. In another bus accident in 1995, he was struck by a bus, but his injuries were only minor. Finally, in 1996, he escaped a head-on collision, hitting the guardrail instead. He was forcefully ejected from the car, and he hung on to a tree while he watched his car plummet 90 feet into a gorge below. Brain survived the impossible 7 times, and is still alive to tell his tales. Robert Evans. You think you had a bad day? Wait until you hear the story of Robert Evans. His day is the mother of bad days. On this fateful day, a 46-year-old Evans was hit by a car while riding his bike, and doctors were amazed at how he didn't suffer any injuries and discharged him at around 3 a.m. 75 minutes later, Evans was brought in again after being hit by a coal train that sent him toppling off the bridge into the creek 10 feet below. Once again, his injuries weren't life-threatening, and he was released that same day. Truman Duncan. Being hit by a train is one of the surest ways to die, but this guy survived one and lived to tell the tale. His tale was so surprising, Oprah.com named him the Miracle Man. A father of 3, Duncan worked as a railroad switchman at Greenbrier Rail Services in Texas. In 2016, a slight misstep and a literal wind of misfortune sent him under the train, which instantly sliced off both legs and sliced through his pelvic bone. All these injuries, yet he fought to stay alive, as he made a 911 call himself and actually stayed conscious till they arrived. He ended up losing most of his legs and a kidney, but he made a miraculous recovery after 23 surgeries in the next 42 days. This guy literally went through the wheels of death and lived. And now for our top picks. Do you want to find out how one survives multiple accidents in a day? Or who the world's luckiest man is? Stay tuned. Vesna Valovic. This is one woman who survived a life-threatening fall and set a record in the process. Vesna Valovic was a flight attendant with JAT Airways and boarded a plane on January 26, 1972, just like any other day. Little did she know that her JAT Flight 367 was rigged with explosives. The briefcase bomb detonated, instantly killing all passengers on board, save for Vesna, who fell 33,330 feet without a parachute or any protective gear. She was severely injured, as she suffered a fractured skull, broken legs, a fractured pelvis, broken ribs, and 3 broken vertebrae, and was in a coma for months. She recovered pretty nicely, and didn't even have a memory of the incident, although she had to walk with a limp for the rest of her life. She set the world record for surviving the highest fall without a parachute. Carlos Rodriguez. Remember the guy living with half a brain? This is how it happened. He lost a large portion of his skull and brain after he was involved in a car crash a few years ago. He was driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs and inadvertently hit a telephone pole that sent him flying through the windshield. It was pretty nasty, and the doctors were amazed at how he didn't die, seeing that his skull was split open. They fused his skull back, and somehow, his brain retained all cognitive functions. So, there you have it, guys. Don't drink and drive. Casey Wagner. We have seen a real-life Frozen character. How about a real-life superhero? Say, Shazam! This next subject of ours takes thunderbolts like Shazam, but unfortunately is missing the costume and super strength. In October 2013, 31-year-old Casey learned that lightning does indeed strike twice, as opposed to the famous saying that lightning never strikes twice. He was attending an off-road event called Rednecks with Paychecks when a thunderstorm began. While waiting for his friend to return from the restroom, Casey sought shelter under a tree, thereby disobeying the rule, never stand under a tree during a thunderstorm. Before he could realize his mistake, a lightning bolt hit him, sending millions of joules coursing through his body. As if that wasn't enough, another one struck his boots, sending a similar amount of energy through his body again. This lucky guy was saved by a passing nurse, who kept him conscious until he got to a hospital. The chances of getting hit by a lightning bolt in America is 1 in 750,000. Casey was struck twice. Phineas Cage. This next subject was impaled on a pole, and still lived to tell the story. On September 13, 1848, Cage was working as a part of a 4-man crew that were preparing a railroad. He was using a tamping rod to pack explosives into a hole, when the explosives detonated, sending the 43-inch long rod straight through his left cheek, through his brain, and out the back of his skull, landing some 80 feet away. Cage walked to a nearby cart and alerted a co-worker who took him to the hospital. Within a month, he was able to walk and retained his intelligence, although he lost the left eye. Not too long later, it was discovered that his personality had changed, and he had gone from being a cheerful young man to an angry, hostile man. Studies showed that the accident had destroyed 11% of the white matter in his frontal lobe, which was supposed to control his personality. A similar incident happened in 2003, when a construction worker fell 6 feet onto his 8-inch long drill bit that entered his right eye and exited through the back of his skull. Luckily, it pushed his brain aside, hence no considerable damage, aside from the loss of his right eye. Mauro Prosperi. Getting lost in the desert is one of the surest ways to die. If the sweltering heat doesn't kill you, the scorching thirst and biting hunger definitely will. If you are lucky enough, your body would be found. When Mauro Prosperi signed up for the toughest foot race on Earth, the Marathon des Sables, an ultramarathon through the Sahara Desert, he knew what he was signing up for. But he definitely didn't expect what he saw in the arid wilderness. A sandstorm caused him to lose his way, and he ended up running several kilometers in the wrong direction. When he discovered his error, it was already too late, and he was out of food and water. He found an abandoned shrine where he survived on bats and drinking his own urine. He even attempted to kill himself by slitting his wrists, but his blood was too thick to even flow. He followed the early morning clouds and was later rescued by a nomadic family. He had lost 18 kilograms and was 299 kilometers off route. That must have been hell. Anna Begenholm. What if I told you that maybe Frozen wasn't just a movie after all, and that Elsa's sister isn't the only person to be frozen solid and come back to life? This next subject is a medical worker and even bears the same name as Elsa's sister, Anna. In 1999, a 29-year-old orthopedic went on a jolly skiing trip with her colleagues when she lost control and fell onto a frozen stream below. Unfortunately, she was literally treading on thin ice, and the ice broke, trapping her beneath 8 inches of ice, leaving only her legs outside. She survived the next 40 minutes, breathing shallowly using a tiny air pocket, before her body went into circulatory arrest due to hypothermia. By the time help came, she had been under the ice for 1 hour 20 minutes, and by the time she was gotten to a nearby hospital, she'd been clinically dead for 2 hours. Desperate efforts to rewarm her blood proved successful, and 24 hours later, Anna's heart restarted, and a year later, she was able to move again. Whew, that was a close one. The Stella Maris rugby team. Many people are terrified of flying, and you can guess why. The chances of having a crash are high, and in the event of a crash, escaping death is almost impossible. Only a very tiny fraction experience a plane crash and live to tell the tale. For the Stella Maris rugby team, a plane crash was only the beginning of their woes. On October 13, 1972, the team set out on a chartered flight with family and friends. Little did they know that this was going to be the last flight for many of them, and the beginning of endless woes for the rest of them, that would later be known as the Andes flight disaster or the Miracle of Andes. While crossing the Andes, their inexperienced pilot believed they had reached Curacao, Chile, even though the instruments clearly said they hadn't. And he decided it would be a good idea to start descending, and struck a mountain, cleaving off the tail section and both wings. The fuselage hit a glacier and came to a stop, but not before killing several passengers. Rescue teams flew over the crash site multiple times, but spotting a white fuselage against a white snowy background while it's snowing isn't the easiest sport. Over the next 72 days, 13 more passengers died due to extreme conditions. You don't want to know what happened to their bodies. 2 survivors, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, climbed a 15,260-foot mountain and trekked for 10 days without any gear to find help. A total of 16 passengers were rescued. And that is all we have for you today. Tell us what you think about this video in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to this channel and stick around for more amazing content. Until next time, stay safe, kids.